It was a Thursday at 2:47 p.m. And it was my third corporate headshot session of the week. Photographed at Skylight Studios in San Diego, my favorite place to shoot. Good people. I was photographing on the same gray cyc wall. It's the same safe lighting, you know? Got your large softbox to the right. You got your V flat. Got your kicker light behind the subject. You got one of those fancy eyelighters, which I thought was a gimmick till I used it, and then I'm like, man, these things are pretty awesome. You got your same jokes that people make, the make me 10 pounds lighter jokes that people say, and I always say the same thing back to them. Yeah, I'm just turning down the thinner dial on my camera. That's my joke. You can steal it. Always gets a little chuckle. And here's the part that I was actually kind of surprised by and a little confused. I was actually enjoying shooting these headshots. I know, it's crazy. I was actually smiling. I was joking around. I was chopping it up with those women in pantsuits and the men in bad ties. And I remember thinking as, what's her name? Julia or Sandra, whatever her name was getting her fourth makeup touch-up, that I wasn't actually hating this. Headshots. Go figure. I mean, at one point, I actually hated headshots. I must admit, I always felt like a glorified DMV photographer, you know? Turn to the left, turn to the right. Give me a half smile. Oh, too much smile. Let's dial a smile back. Blah, 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 blah. But there I was, sitting there thinking on that couch, waiting for her to get out of makeup. I was like, I don't mind this. Maybe this is nice. Maybe I kind of like it. And it wasn't in some like cinematic, light through the windows, angels singing from heaven moments. Just kind of a plain beige satisfaction of doing something predictable. Something that I knew that I was good at. It was just, well, easy. And I know I'm going to get some emails from some headshot photographers saying, it's actually really difficult work. You know, it takes a lot of expertise. Hot take. Nah. But I digress. Because there I was. I was relieved because I wasn't having to reinvent myself, you know? I wasn't having to think outside the box or solve a puzzle. It's the utter soul-crushing comfort of putting on my shoes and knowing exactly what the day would hold. And I feel like my younger self would be pretty pissed, actually. The one who swore that he would never settle for vanilla. And here I was, spoon in hand, licking the goddamn bowl clean, like my border collie in a bowl of remains from a sliced prime rib. And here's the part that still surprises me. I didn't really want to stop. Maybe the pressure to be brilliant after all these years was actually killing me more slowly than boredom ever did. Because I think somewhere along the way, this passion for photography, as we so like to say, I think got weaponized. It stopped being a spark and it became a performance. It was a test of worthiness you're supposed to ace every single goddamn day. Because what about when your dream job, the job that you always hoped to have, the job that you worked so hard to have, becomes just a job? Who am I talking to today? What about those long beige stretches between agony and ecstasy? It's the part that we never post about because it doesn't trend. And if you've ever felt guilty for not loving every second of work that you supposedly chose, if you've caught yourself finding comfort in the ordinary, if you're tired of pretending passion is a renewable resource, this episode, my friends, is for you. My name is Patrick Four. This is the Terrible Photographer Podcast, where we have honest conversations about creativity and identity and finding your voice. Can't believe we've done it, folks. We've made it to number 28. It's my third favorite number. I'm calling it the tyranny of okay.
Okay.
Okay, Act 1, the Passion Police. Do you want to know something that pisses me off that people say? It's a lie. That when I hear it, just makes me cringe. It's this. If you do what you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life. Come on. That's weapons grade bullshit. Because passion is not an endless well. It sputters, it muddies. And some days it seems like it doesn't show up at all. But we treat a lack of inspiration like a diagnosis instead of what it actually is, a Tuesday afternoon. Here's my confession. I sometimes, occasionally, especially when I'm busy doing shoots, there's a lot of logistics and movement and travel, I look so forward to batch editing sessions. Sometimes I don't even outsource my retouching because the thought of just sitting at my computer in sweatpants doing the work just sounds so appealing to me. It's not the creative bits, it's not the breakthroughs. It's the factory work. It's hundreds of files. It's the same moves. It's the same shortcuts. You put a podcast in the background. Sometimes I listen to this one. Okay, I lied. I don't. That'd be a little weird if I listened to my own podcast. I don't listen to my own podcast. I swear to God. I actually like that kind of work sometimes. It's the okay, boring work. And what I actually enjoyed was the absence of pressure to be transcendent, the relief of competence without creativity, the simple rhythm of getting shit done without having to perform inspiration that I did not feel. But in this passion police culture, admitting that your dream jobs sometimes feel like work is sometimes treated like creative treason. We've turned "are you living your passion" into this new weird version of a LinkedIn altar call, right? Have you accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior? It's strange, because that's the other half of this tyranny, is a performance. I mean, open LinkedIn on any random Tuesday, and it's like walking into this motivational mega church service where everyone is a little too thrilled to announce their promotion or humbled to be chosen for a fellowship or so grateful to lead this amazing campaign with this amazing team for this amazing client. Everything is so amazing, right? Every post reads like it was written by a brand strategist in a Patagonia vest. And then there's you. It's 2 a.m. and you're in your garage. I don't know what kind of person would ever work in their garage at 2 a.m. You're shooting the same product shot. Maybe it's a tampon packaging with a C-stand that has seen better days. And the floor is dusty, the budget's thin, and you've been staring at the same packaging for so long. You're actually starting to see Jesus in the typography. And that gap between your Tuesday and your feed's Tuesday is what makes okay actually feel like a failure. So I'm calling this the hamburger and lobster problem. Stay with me. See, you've got a cheap but decent burger and a beer in front of you. It's great. It's filling, tasty, but it ain't sexy. It's not glamorous. It's humble. But sitting across from you, there is your competitor, and your competitor is dining on lobster tails, sipping gin martinis, the whole 9 yards. And look, let's be really honest. Most of us are eating hamburgers most of the time. And our hamburgers are sometimes cheap and greasy. Sometimes they're decent, pub style. And yes, every once in a while we get a lobster. But lobster isn't the diet. It's the exception. LinkedIn, I think, just edits out all the humble burgers. And if you buy that performance long enough, you start thinking your entire career is second rate. But in reality, it's just real. There's research on this. Psychologists call it the social comparison theory, the idea that we evaluate our lives and our careers by stacking them against everyone else's highlight reels. And this, my friends, is poison. There's a 2020 study out of the University of Copenhagen that found that people who quit Facebook for just 1 week reported significantly higher life satisfaction and less envy. Just 1 week away from their feed, and they felt more human again. But we're addicts. And LinkedIn is a professional casino. No clocks, no windows, just endless jackpots of other people's wins, lighting up your brain with the reminder that your Tuesday burger looks pitiful next to their lobster. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor himself, wasn't eating lobster every single day. Most of his life, most of it, was filled with bureaucracy and border disputes and paperwork and plagues. His diary did not gush about inspiration. He wrote this: at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, you tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. And if Marcus Aurelius could stomach bureaucracy, why the hell do we think we're failures for finding comfort in routine sometimes? And here's where the research gets a little brutal. Psychologists tracked 2 different types of people. You got your maximizers and your satisficers. Maximizers hunt for the perfect option. They compare obsessively. They research endlessly. They look for the absolute best. Sound familiar? I know it does for me. But satisficers pick something that's good enough. They set a threshold, and once it's met, they move on. Maximizers actually end up with better jobs. On average, $7,400 more in starting salary. But they also reported more regret, more anxiety, less satisfaction, and they couldn't stop replaying the roads not taken. Satisficers, on the other hand, yes, they made less money, but they were happier. We all know people like this because they weren't living in this constant comparison mode. And that hit me right upside the face. I've been a maximizer my entire life. I don't think I've ever been satisfied. I have always been looking for a better job, a better opportunity, a better client, a more creative project, the cooler gig. And half the time, I never really even enjoyed the job that I had because I was too busy about regretting the jobs that I didn't take or that I failed at. And I was too busy fantasizing about the ones that I didn't get or the ones that I might get in the future. And so many years as a photographer, too many shoots to count, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of images created. And I can count on both hands the amount of times, the moments at shoots, I've said to myself, this is why I was born. The other 99.9% of the time, it was work. And sometimes it was good work. It was often satisfying work, but it was still work. And here's the twist. Those 10 transcendent moments didn't happen despite the ordinary work. They actually happened because of it. They were earned through the accumulation of Tuesdays, through the competence of all the hamburgers, not the glory of the lobster. Competence built the conditions. Passion occasionally showed up as the bonus track. But we live in a culture that's addicted to this bonus track. We're addicted to the lobster photos. And for us, when Tuesday rolls around and we're eating our humble hamburger, we think that we've failed. Act 2. The catering coordinator's secret. I want to talk to you about two people. First is about Viktor Frankl, and then I'll tell you about Sarah, my friend, who's a catering coordinator who became really my unexpected philosophy teacher. Frankl spent 3 years in a Nazi concentration camp, and he figured out something that most of us still can't and will never figure out. Survival isn't about optimism or positive thinking or about brute strength. It was actually about meaning making, finding purpose when life strips away every other option. The people who survived weren't necessarily the strongest or the most hopeful. They were the ones who could create significance out of seemingly insignificant circumstances. Now, please hear me. I am not on any level comparing photography or what we do to the experience of those in concentration camps. Please don't get that twisted. But Frankl's insights here applies to what we do. We can't always choose our circumstances, but we can always choose our perspective and our stance towards them. Let me explain this further with my friend Sarah's story. I met Sarah at this corporate networking event that honestly, I thought would be a big chance to rub shoulders with CEOs and marketing directors. But instead, it turned out to be a room full of these SaaS nerds with project managers who heard them. There was too many chinos, too many all-birds shoes, not really my people. But hey, there's free lunch, you got your chicken skewers, you got your steak skewers, and you got some vegetable sliders. So I grabbed a plate. I found this comfortable couch in the lobby, and I decided to turn the whole thing into this work session / people watching gig. It was actually pretty great. I was getting a lot done. And that's when Sarah walked in. Sarah was in her late 20s. She was short, wearing black polo, black shoes. And she had the uniform of somebody who doesn't get mistaken to be a guest. And she just like collapsed into the couch across from me. She let out this big sigh that felt like it had been building since breakfast. And she poked around on her phone for a little while before setting it down, like even doom scrolling wasn't worth the energy. Now, moments like this for me are delicate. I have to navigate them really carefully. She looked a little open to talking, but I live in my head, and sometimes I have a little bit of social anxiety. And I'm always worried that a stranger will think like I'm trying to like flirt with them or hit on them. Look, I am happily married. I'm not looking for that vibe, but still my brain runs all the tapes. Like creeper or decent human being, which one she will think I will be. So I looked up from my Mac, typing my email, and I asked, "Long day?" And she exhaled and almost relieved that someone had asked. Yes. We traded small talk, and she asked why I was sitting out in the lobby instead of inside with all the other attendees. I said, they really aren't my people. I tend to get overwhelmed in those sort of environments. She laughed. She asked me, almost cutting through my bullshit. She goes, well, who are your people then? Honestly, I just think I'm old and I still don't know, but I don't think it's them. She laughed again. The ice cracked. I asked if she liked her job. And here's where I will admit, I will confess to you that I had some assumptions, you know? She looked exhausted, and she was just schlepping skewer trays around and coffee urns and name badges to people who left them by the dessert table. And I figured that she would say no, that this job was just a paycheck, maybe just a stepping stone. But she surprised me. Yeah, I think. I like my job a lot, she said. And then she explained, after seeing my puzzled look. I used to think that my job was just moving chairs and managing timelines and filling chicken stations, but really, it's creating events where people can connect and celebrate. And every setup is always different because every group is always different. And I just enjoy the people aspect. And she kept going. She told me that she was a mom, that her partner was in the Navy here in San Diego, and that she was just thankful for the stability and the benefits, the paycheck that landed on time every 2 weeks. That this was steady work for her, and it was giving her breathing room to go back to school. She's finishing a degree in hospitality management. That this wasn't just a job for her, you know? It was a foundation. It was something that allowed her to build on the rest of her life. It was the same skewers, the same all-bird shoes and chinos, the same complaints about the vegetarian options running out, but suddenly, completely different relationship to the work. She hadn't found a new job, but she reframed the one that she had. And in that reframing, she actually reminded me of something that the Stoics said over and over again. You are more than what you do for a living. But Epictetus was born a slave. Marcus Aurelius was an empire. Couldn't be more opposite. And yet, both said the same thing. Your worth as a human being isn't defined by your title or your tasks. Work is a part of life, but it isn't the whole life. And that's what Epictetus called the dichotomy of control. Some things are yours to command. Most, however, are not. Look, you can't control whether the client gets, quote unquote, your artistry, but you can control the care that you can bring to solving their problem. You can't control whether today's work will inspire you, but you can control whether you show up fully for today's work. You can't always choose your job, but you can always choose your stance, your position, your meaning towards it. And since I've started my own business, I've spent more nights than I can count, hunched over my Mac, carving out clipping masks for products, or dodging and burning the same skin until my eyes bleed. That's the job sometimes. And that's my version of stacking chairs and refilling the chicken skewer station. It's the okay work. It's the burger level work. And look, I will say as a sidebar, I know this episode is leaning a little heavy with the food metaphors, but stay with me because the burgers matter. The burgers matter, people. The burgers is what leads to the lobster. Unless you have a seafood allergy, then just fill in the blank. Because here's the truth, guys. These lobster moments, the transcendent shoots, the dream clients, the magic frames, they don't appear out of nowhere. They're earned. They're built on the backs of nights spent pushing pixels or stacking chairs or making skewers disappear, doing the work that no one Instagrams. And when you give complete attention to the ordinary work, not because it's inspiring, but because it serves someone, you stop needing to be transcendent. You make it generous. You make it craft. You make it dignified. Sarah, my good friend Sarah, who really is the hero of this story, reminds me, and the Stoics back her up, the work doesn't define you. It sustains you. It creates conditions. It builds foundations. And sometimes that's enough. Okay, Act 3, the philosophy of good enough. I apologize. I'm apparently losing my voice. It's all for the podcast, guys. So, question. How do you actually live here, right? Between brilliance and boredom without actually losing your mind? There's this author, I'm going to butcher his name, author Avram Alpert. I think that's how you pronounce it. He wrote a book called The Good Enough Life. And his thesis was our obsession with greatness is making us restless, disconnected, and ruthless. The pursuit of being the best doesn't trickle down into benefits. It just entrenches inequality and makes everyone miserable chasing an impossible standard. His solution? Embrace good enough. Not as settling, but as a radical rejection of a rigged game. I'm going to bring up one of my favorite authors as of late, Mr. George Orwell, who understood this long before it was fashionable. He had a respectable career lined up. He was an officer in the British colonial police. He was decorated, ambitious. He could have stayed in that lane. Instead, Orwell walked away. He took jobs as a dishwasher in Paris, living in basements, scrubbing pans, hauling plates in kitchens that no one thought about. He wrote about it in Down and Out in Paris and London. He called dishwashers slaves of the modern world, invisible but necessary, the kind of people without them whom restaurants would actually collapse. He also found honesty there, and not posturing, not grandeur, just survival, and the quiet dignity of showing up and doing what had to be done. Orwell chose the basement over the badge, and in that crime, he found truth. Okay, I didn't think that I would do this, but I'm gonna give a little bit of an Orwell sidebar. Okay, if you can forgive me here and indulge me, I'm gonna pull a quick detour. While we're on the subject of Orwell and tyranny, for that matter, let me for a moment just give a little sidebar. Because his name, Orwell, has been brought up a lot lately. The book 1984 has practically become a bumper sticker lately. But Orwell's obsession wasn't related, honestly, with internet bans or celebrities getting canceled. It was actually with language. It was more with clarity, with the way that propaganda and euphemism rots our ability to see the world clearly. It's when people in power fuck with the language, and they fuck with the language so much that they distort reality, right? And for him, free speech wasn't just about yelling whatever you want without consequence. It was actually about protecting the space where truth could still be spoken plainly and clearly, where ordinary people like you and me could say, this is wrong. This doesn't make sense, right? And this ties, I think, directly back to our work on some level. Because if you can't name what's happening, if you can't say this isn't passion, it's burnout, or even just this is okay, not extraordinary, right? If you can't be honest with our peers or your family or society or LinkedIn about what the work actually is, then you lose the ability to make meaning out of it. Free speech, guys, is not abstract. It's actually survival. It's how we as humans hold on to dignity. And Orwell knew that doing the work matters, but so does telling the clear and honest truth about the work. Because when we are silenced, whether that silence comes from a government entity or a social media app, it's still wrong. Okay, so maybe the real revolution isn't chasing greatness, guys. Maybe it's finding the courage to choose enough and to say so out loud. So here are 3 practices that actually work. Ready? Practice 1, adopt the satisficer mindset. Stop hunting for the perfect client, the perfect project, the perfect opportunity, and define your quote unquote good enough threshold and choose the first option that meets it. The maximizers in that study earned more money but felt worse about it in their lives. Don't be them. You don't have to be them. Practice 2, create meaning with the work you have. Like Sarah with her chairs and coffee dispensers, look for ways your ordinary work serves something beyond your immediate comfort. Sometimes it's the client's confidence. Sometimes it's your own skill development. Sometimes it's simply the satisfaction of solving problems cleanly and honestly. Practice 3, the Tuesday test. Measure your own relationship to the work, not by highlight reels or disasters, but by the aggressively ordinary Tuesday. It's the calls, the emails, the edits, the errands, the basic family portrait, right? Can you choose that day instead of just endure it? Because if you can choose Tuesday, everything else, friends, becomes a bonus. I love this quote by Marcus Aurelius, and he asks a question. If you are distressed because you are failing to accomplish some particular action, why do you not persist in the action rather than yield to the distress? What if the action isn't about finding better work? What if the action is actually choosing the work that you already have? Okay, friends, that brings us to the light leak for the week. I'm a poet and didn't even know it. This week's light leak is called Gratitude for Okay. So a few episodes back, in the episode Is It Good?, we wrestled with how we judge the quality, that's the key word, quality of our work. And that was about standards, about taste, about the craft itself. This, my friends, is different. This is about being okay with okay. About gratitude for the work that isn't transcendent or portfolio worthy, but sustains us. And for me, that lesson came from Sarah in that conference lobby, eating chicken skewers and writing emails and watching people schmooze it up wearing chinos and all-bird shoes. She reminded me that moving chairs could be connection, that steady work could be a foundation for her kid, her partner in the Navy, to her own degree. She was grateful for the work that I would have written off as drudgery or being beneath me. And I realized maybe that this whole reason the universe drugged me to that silly event full of sass bros and sad veggie sliders wasn't for the networking or the opportunities to meet some clients, but to sit across from Sarah and learn that it's okay to be okay. So, here's your challenge for this week. Step 1, identify your okay work. I want you to look at the calendar, your calendar for the next month. And I want you to circle the jobs or your tasks or sessions that are neither disasters nor breakthroughs. The beige middle, the burger Tuesdays. Step 2, practice gratitude in real time. When you show up to do the okay work, pause and say out loud, if you can, thank you. Thank you for this task that pays my bills. Thank you for the ability of routine. Thank you for the competence I get to practice here. Step 3, name the difference. Remember, asking, is it good, is about judging the work. Asking, is it okay, is about accepting that it's good enough. They're not the same question. Don't confuse them. Step 4, share your gratitude. I want you to tell someone else about the ordinary part of your work that you're thankful for. It doesn't have to be profound. Look, say something like, I'm thankful I get to retouch headshots while listening to music sitting in my living room. I'm thankful that spreadsheets keeps my lights on. Because gratitudes for the okay isn't resignation, it's liberation. Sarah taught me that, and I'm so grateful she did. Okay, so Thursday, 2:47 p.m., and I'll probably be shooting headshots again. It's the same gray backdrop, same safe lighting, same 10-pound thinner jokes, and I'm going to be enjoying it. Not because I've lowered my standards or given up my artistic growth, but because I finally understand what Sarah already knew, that there's dignity in the work that doesn't make the headlines. Most of our creative lives are burgers and beer. Sometimes it's greasy. Sometimes it's decent. Occasionally it's overcooked. Occasionally, though, it's surprisingly good. They keep us alive. They keep the lights on. And every once in a while, if you're lucky, you get lobster and gin martinis. It's a dream client. It's a transcendent shoot. It's a moment that makes the whole thing feel lit from within. But lobster, my friends, isn't the diet. It's the exception. The lie is thinking that you're supposed to be dining on lobster every single night, and that if you're not, you're failing. Sarah gets it. To her, chairs and coffee urns weren't drudgery. They were connection, a foundation for her kid, for her partner in the Navy, for her own degree in hospitality management. She reminded me that the ordinary doesn't just sustain, it enables. The tyranny was never the work being ordinary. The tyranny was believing ordinary wasn't enough. Look, we've been told all our life to chase the fireworks, to live as if every day should be lobster and gin martinis. But maybe the revolution is learning to appreciate the humble, delicious burger in front of you. To show up, to pay attention, to stop apologizing for competence, for survival, for the daily grind that just is work. Because here's the secret, my friends. If you can choose Tuesday's hamburger and beer without shame, when the lobster and martinis finally come, they'll taste so much sweeter. And along the way, don't forget to be grateful. Grateful for people like Sarah, who remind us how to see the value in just okay. Gratitude isn't the point of this episode, but maybe it's the byproduct. Choose Tuesday anyway. Stay curious, stay courageous, and yeah, stay terrible.